Well, Jamie, who works on the show, was diagnosed with the condition back in 2015, and his own Dexcom woke him up one night recently when his blood sugar was dangerously low.
That's the Dexcom alarm, which has just alerted me that my blood sugar is low. It's so low that it didn't actually give a reading. That's where it can actually be kind of dangerous. This is why these sensors are good, because it's now just approaching 11:30 at night. I was fast asleep, tucked up in bed, ready for an early start at work. So whilst it's annoying that that alarm has woken me up while I was sound asleep, what it did do is alert me to the fact that I need glucose now. So I've been able to run downstairs, stuff a few fistfuls of Haribos into my mouth, which isn't what you want to do really at 11:30 at night, but it is essential because what that means is I just took a little bit more insulin than I should have done at dinner.
Do you have the good type or the bad type?
It's because you ate too much sugar.
Oh yeah, my dog's got diabetes.
Those are words that I've heard a lot in the last almost 7 years because I live with type 1 diabetes, which is a condition that means my pancreas doesn't produce any insulin, which is a hormone that helps your body store energy from food and keeps your blood sugar in a healthy range. Now, my pancreas stopped making insulin sometime in late October 2015 and I got fairly ill, but luckily it was caught just in time. And in the relatively short time since my diagnosis, the way that I'm able to manage type 1 diabetes has changed drastically. At the start, it was often a painful process of regular finger prick tests and multiple daily injections. However, more recently, I use an insulin pump and a Dexcom constant glucose monitor. And the cool thing is, my CGM automatically sends my blood sugar levels to my pump, which works out how much insulin I need and delivers it without me having to do anything. Now, in theory, this is supposed to stop my blood sugar from going too high or too low, both of which can be dangerous. But as we heard last night, a hyper, high blood sugar, or hypo, low blood sugar, aren't always avoidable. But the CGM did wake me up when my blood sugar was dangerously low, so Dexcom did its job, at least. And in fact, it's actually time to put in a brand new sensor.
First, I'm going to open up the container. Inside is the insertion device, which also holds the sensor. Then I'm going to rip off the little, I don't know, like sticky tape thing to reveal the sticky surface. Then I'm going to stick that to my arm. And then here's the scary bit. I've got to prime the device. So I flick off this little orange tab, which means, I guess, that it's armed now. That's what they call it. And I'm going to press the orange button. 3, 2, 1.
And it's in. Living with diabetes is by no means easy, but tech like my pump and CGM take away some of the pressures and anxiety. If I do my job correctly, the tech should reduce the risk of complications related to the condition, and now more people are hopefully going to have the chance to enjoy the same benefits.
That's Jamie then, who works on the show, and he's in the studio now. You've got your short sleeves on there, so can I see it? I can't even spot it. There it is. Only when he lifts up his T-shirt there, and it's a neat little gadget. Hello, thanks for joining us, and thanks for doing the diary. I really appreciate the fact that, particularly when that alarm went off, obviously you were dead asleep, you didn't know when it was going to go off, and you still started to record for us. What a hero.
Yeah, thank you.
So you have been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes since 2015. So, you know, a while for your life, but actually relative to some people's quite a short time ago. What was the clue that something was amiss?
Well, interestingly, it was my first time living, away from my parents. I'd done university. I'm quite grateful that I had, my childhood and my university years without it. But I was, I'd moved down to the West. I was, effectively on my own in a very stressful job. It was my first sort of job in media and telly and all that sort of stuff. So I was really sort of like going hard into it, and I didn't notice all the things that were happening to my body. So it was really, it actually got really dangerous. I sort of had my, I was head down on the desk in the sort of newsroom at the place where I worked, and someone was like, "You're not right," and I was like, "Oh, I've just got a cold," and they were like, "No, you were just passed out."
Right.
So I was rushed to Southmead Hospital.
Wow.
Spent more than a weekend in there, and came out with lots of new information about a condition called type 1 diabetes.
Yes, and then life changes. So obviously there's all the health side of it and the eating and all of that side of it, but there's also the technology. And honestly, you're like a walking robot today. So what have you got there apart from the CGM? That's just the beginning, really. What else is going on there?
Yeah, that's just the start. So I was showing you earlier that I have 3 potential ways of checking my blood sugar without having to spill a drop of blood. So my sensor in my arm will talk to both my smartphone, my smartwatch, and my insulin pump. And all 3 devices are usually not too far from me, if not attached to me permanently.
Yeah, and that your actual device there, this is amazing, right? So this is what? Tell me again what this is. This is your.
That's my insulin pumps.
Right, your insulin pump, and that will give you a very distinctive graph that tells you how life is for you, diabetes-wise, at any point in the day. And then if it should start to drop or go too high, what will it do, or what happens?
So because of the sensor, now a lot of people will have this pump, but not everyone has the sensor. And with the sensor, that means it's called a closed loop system. So effectively, it's like half automated. So I still have to tell it when I eat and how many carbs I eat, if I do eat. But in the bits between, it will take every 5 minutes a reading from my sensor and then do some sort of clever calculations. And that's the thing, it's like a computer doing it. So, human error is effectively removed. Yeah. And it will either say, oh, let's have a bit less insulin, or let's stop the insulin entirely, if I'm working out or exercising or running up and down the stairs making cups of tea.
For me.
Or if I, have misjudged or miscalculated my lunch, it will say, oh, we need a bit more insulin. And it'll do that all for me in my pocket. And it means I can focus on other things.
Yeah, and just get on with your life, basically, which is what everybody wants. Now, obviously, as you pointed, it's not the cheapest system, the CGM system, and that has been something that I guess meant that a lot of people couldn't get it on prescription. But this has changed now, and it's going to. And actually, the decision was made earlier in the year, but it's starting to filter down through to you if you're listening and you've got type 1 diabetes. But the cost is significant, but it's worthwhile because why?
Because it's almost preventative medicine. So what this is doing, if my blood sugar remains high for too long, I risk something called diabetic neuropathy. Now that can attack different parts of your body. Lots of people end up with poor eyesight, end up with loss of sensation in their arms and legs and things like that.
Yeah, feet, you can lose limbs.
Leading to potentially amputation in really serious circumstances. I mean, people should talk about complications because they can happen, but what this is doing is just hedging our bets a little bit and giving people the opportunity to have a little bit of help with managing the condition, because let's face it, it is something that takes a lot of mental toll. It requires a lot of thinking about and planning, and not everyone has the time to do it perfectly all the time. I know I definitely don't.
Negatives, what's the things that people need to be aware of?
Well, I think you heard them.
The alarm.
And actually Sam, who did an audio diary for us a little earlier in the show, she had the same complaint, and it's the only complaint really. It's just the repetitive alarms. So, for example, if it's telling me that I'm low in the middle of the night, I know that I can, have a handful of, sweets, chewy sweets with lots of sugar in, quite densely carb packed, and I'll be fine. But until that affects my blood sugar, Dexcom will keep reminding me that my blood sugar is low.
I've had the sweet. How long does it take them to go from eating the sweets to registry?
My diabetes specialist nurse told me 8 minutes, but
I don't know what. In the middle of the night.
Yeah, I don't know what her watch is doing, because it's more like 20 for me.
Right. Okay. But small price to pay in the bigger scheme of things. And as we say, decision has been made now, so it's filtering through, and people should be hearing very shortly. Then.
Yeah. I mean, so the NHS has sort of struck a deal with Dexcom to create a bespoke system. So it's slightly different to the one I use. It won't talk to insulin pumps. However, it will be a more accurate and a more compatible way for people to monitor their glucose with all the tech devices that a lot of us just have anyway.
Well, exactly. Well, that's good news. May you and all your amazing gadgetry continue to have very good health because of it. Thank you very much, Jamie. And thanks for waking up in the middle of the night and continuing to record for us. What a hero.
Anna King. BBC Radio Gloucestershire.